Hello, digital artists. This is your teacher, Miss Dressel, and I am going to walk you through how to make our project that we are starting today, our Value Crystals project. So there are a couple of different ways that you can get your geometric shapes to fill up the space. I am going to show you the two different ways. You can use the Shape tool to come over to Shapes and choose the triangle. You can come over to the triangle and you can draw it. And then when you look at your triangle, it's going to have this binding box going all around the edges. It'll have your dot at the top so you can rotate your triangle. It'll have your blue anchor squares at the corners so that you could stretch out your triangle and change its shape. And you can also use the yellow diamond to slide your triangle all around. So if we straighten this triangle back out, we can use the slider to change it. We can turn it into a right triangle. We can turn it into an equilateral triangle. We can turn it into different angles for our triangle shape. So what you can do is make a couple of triangles and use them to fill up the space in a way that's interesting. If you really like this triangle, you could duplicate it with the keyboard shortcut Control D. You can move it over. If you don't like that one so much, you can always change them around, move them. We want to fill up our page for our Google drawing with some interesting triangles or other geometric shapes. So another way that you can make a geometric shape, besides going over to the Shapes tool and choosing a triangle, you can also come over to the Polyline tool. So the way to get to the Polyline tool is to come in to the toolbox, come over to Select Line, and then come on down to the Polyline. Once you've chosen the Polyline tool, you can click, move the mouse, click, move the mouse, and click, move the mouse, and click to close off your shape. That way you have a new geometric shape that you made with the Polyline tool. So I'm going to take some time to use the Polyline to come around and make some interesting geometric shapes to fill up the page of my artwork. Once we make our geometric shapes that fill up the page, we are going to explore adding different values to each of the geometric shapes. So I am going to take a few moments to make a variety of different triangles, and I really enjoy using the Polyline tool. You might want to just use the Shapes to come over and get a triangle and then click and drag it. You can make a lot of different adjustments with either one of these tools. So if you are making it with the Polyline, you can come in and double click to stretch it out, change it up, adjust it so that it's where you need it, or you can stretch it and adjust it with the binding box, those blue anchor squares, thinking about how you can make your project more visually interesting. But I like to use the Polyline tool. I feel like I get to express my ideas more that way, so I'm going to just come in, and I don't like that these are touching, so I might come back over to the Select tool, move this one up a little bit, and then come back to the Polyline, and just clicking with the Polyline to make some triangles that fill up the space. I think that's a good place to start. So now that I have all of my shapes made, notice that they are the default colors. So I want to come in and change these colors with the Fill Color tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually select all of them. I'm going to click and drag to select all of my shapes. So they're all selected. The first thing I want to do is turn the border to transparent. So I'm going to come over to the Border Color tool while everything is selected, and I'm going to choose Transparent. That's going to turn off the border on all of my shapes. The next thing I want to do is I want to choose one of the shapes. So notice none of them are selected, so those color choices went away. I want to come over to the Select tool, choose one. I want to click on Fill Color and come over to Gradient. I don't want to use a pre-made gradient. I'm better than that. So I'm going to come and make a custom color gradient. The custom color gradient dialog box is going to appear with a preview. And I want to change them to radial. I want them to radiate from the center of the shape. And I don't want it to go from light gray to dark gray. I'm going to add a few stops. And I'm going to choose some monochromatic values for my gradient. So I'm going to choose monochromatic values from one of these rows of colors. So I'm going to choose colors that are in the same row vertically right here to make my shapes all have a different kind of value of the same hue. So I'm going to choose these ones that are on the right hand side, and I'm going to choose the lightest value, some middle tones, a darker tone, the darkest tone, and then I can move these around. So I can change the colors and the order that they're going to fade through. So I can go from something like this, switching it up, making it how I want it to be. I think I like this, and then I'm going to click OK. So now I have one of these already made. Maybe I don't like that. Maybe I like kind of it, but I want to move it around a little bit. I'm going to change the placement of my different values. So maybe I want my gradient to be more like this. I went in and I changed the gradient I already made. I like this better. I think it is more smooth looking. So I'm going to do this. I'm actually going to click a few of these to use the same type of gradient. So then I can come back over to my fill color tool, and I'm going to come over to gradient, and I already have those two pre-made gradients. I'm going to click it, and they automatically fill in. Then I can make a new custom gradient, and I want to choose the same color families, but instead of it being linear, or instead of it being radial, I want it to be linear. So I'm going to change the type to linear, and then I can change the angles. So I'm going to come in and change the angle and the direction, the type. I'm going to click OK. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come through all of the different choices I have, and I'm going to change the angle to different directions. So it's going to change the effect of my picture. So I'm going to choose I'm going to click on that pre-made gradient, and then I'm going to come over to change it by clicking custom because that color gradient is already there. So I'll keep going, changing the direction, and maybe I want to think about the direction of the shape's angle. So the angle of this shape is diagonal. So when I come over to the gradient, maybe I want to choose the one that is diagonal that way. For this one, maybe I want to choose one that is going to be coming from the bottom again. So I'm going to use the different gradients, radial and linear, to fill in my image. So once I choose the different gradients, coming back over, clicking, choosing, refining my choices. Maybe I want to change some of these gradients just a little bit, like changing the direction. I might want to come over to the fill color tool and then click on the plus sign because it's already chosen on this one. If I click on the plus sign, it's going to default to the settings I already made, so I can change the direction of my different gradients. So now I have this fractured image. What I want to do now is I want to consider changing the border. So I might, now that I have this all done, I might want to change the border so I can go in and add a border color. Maybe I'll use this very light border color and raise it up by choosing a different border weight. So I can choose the border weight, make it thicker, coming up to fill in the area. I want to get rid of all this checkerboard, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click. So now that I have all this selected, what I might want to do is shrink it down. And I can use this design that I've already made small to fill in the space like a tiled image. So I can duplicate all of these shapes while they are selected by pressing the keyboard shortcut Control D on my keyboard. And I can move it over. I can resize it smaller. And I can fill up the space. I can also resize it. I can stretch it out. Maybe I want to make it long, stretched out like that to fill in the space. Now that I'm looking at it, I might want to adjust some of these points like that to make my picture more interesting. Or maybe I only want to select some of them and I can come over to duplicate it. Then I can use the format options to flip it over horizontally and put it in there like that. And then I can make a couple more pieces. Maybe I'll just take one that I think will fit there, like this one, and I'll duplicate it, rotate it, try to slide that piece in here. So maybe I'll need to, I don't like that. I'm going to actually just make a new one with the polyline tool. So I'll come over here, make a new triangle shape. I might need to zoom out so that I can edit it to fill in my area that I'm working in. And then maybe I can make one more. Two more. Maybe I need to come over like this and adjust it. And then I can fit this to my screen. And I can click on these. I can turn the border off. I can give them a gradient. Then I might want to come back in and change the gradient. I might want to choose that thicker border again. So changing the border so that it's more visually interesting. And then these pieces here, might want to bring them a little bit closer. So I'm going to just adjust these a little bit. Like that, so there's a little bit less white space. Now I want to add a background because I can still see the checkerboard in between these. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the shapes, the rectangle. I'm going to click and drag to fill my entire space. I'm going to choose one of the colors that's in that value that I chose on this right-hand side. And I'm going to choose this second one, but it's covering everything up. So I'm going to use Arrange, Order, Send to Back. Send it to the back, and then click Away. But I still have this black border around that rectangle. I'm going to take that off. Turn it to transparent. Now, I'm done with my value crystals, and I can download my image as a JPEG file type. There we go. Make sure that you fill out your artist statement and click Turn in on your Google Drawing.